Hello, my friends. This is Deepak, and today I have the distinct privilege to speak to Jacqueline Corbelli, whom I met recently, and she introduced me to a project that seems very fascinating and interesting. Jacqueline, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, so that was very interesting, that conversation we had. Tell us a little bit more about this project that you have with the light.
I mean, my pleasure, and thank you for having me. To explain what I'm doing really just falls within a broader context of finding a way to sort of give back with truth. And for a very long time, I've been on that journey to find that opportunity, and was given it about 3 years ago as a result of some wonderful relationships that were built during something called the Millennium Development Goals timeframe, which some people may know or remember. It was the first time that the entire world came together and agreed on some things in that UN context. And it was a huge opportunity to see what would happen once, if we could really follow through on that commitment. I was just fortunate enough to be a part of that and directly involved in something called the Millennium Villages Project, which was an integrated economic development program across the Famine Belt of Africa. And it was just a huge a huge awakening and an important set of lessons. So when 3 years ago, I was asked to bring those learnings, and then who I've been before that, which is a business person. I've been in change management for many years, and then I also am an entrepreneur and started a technology company. And so bringing all of that together, the invitation was for me to give a perspective initially on what it might take to incorporate all those learnings that, the world sort of, took away from the Millennium Development Goals era, and see if we could actually figure out a way to accelerate change and accelerate it in a sustainable way. So I built something called, in the technology you're referring to, Dr. Chopra, is SustainChain. And SustainChain was purpose-built. That term is used quite a bit now, but it was purpose-built to reflect the interconnected realities of achieving the kind of fundamental sweeping change that the world needs. So it was designed to represent the systems at work that would help us unlock what's necessary to achieve a sustainable world. And so many things are necessary, and what is sustainability really? Is it about climate change? Is it about social justice? Is it about economic justice? Is it about health? And so on. This particular platform was designed recognizing that all of these things are true. And so is the reality that if global supply chains are not rebuilt in a systems based way, none of it can be sustainable. Just so much of what we are living with, and the weather and so on, and we just read about California this morning, right? Really comes down to taking intelligent, aggressive, intentional action that is concerted and unified, so that we can actually move, with an understanding, with intelligence, and also in the unified way that we need to. And so, long answer to a brief question. But that's the context within which SustainChain was built and what it's designed to do.
So sustainability, to my mind, is a very dynamic system of self-regulation in biology. Of course, that's called homeostasis,
Yes.
self-regulation, where you have a dynamic non-change in the midst of change. So, we say
Yes.
blood sugar should be between this and this, and blood pressure between this and this, inflammatory markers between this and this, hormone levels, such and such, always a range of sustainability for the biological organism to function in a healthy way.
Right.
So as we call it, healing, sustainability, homeostasis, self-regulation, etc. What we are saying is that for global sustainability of supply chains, which means goods and services, I presume, but also means services that actually empower people for taking responsibility for peace, social justice, economic justice, racial justice, but also for health and ultimately, in my view, joy, because if we don't have joy as a human species, we've wasted our life. Tell me exactly how SustainChain works. And of course, we'll have a website here, right, at the end of this conversation. So tell me how it works.
It's SustainChain.world. And specifically how it works is that anyone who is responsible for or committed to, takes leadership in some aspect of industry supply chains, some part of the ecosystem of players that need to come together, whether you are an innovator, a technology entrepreneur, you feel you have a solution to add to some aspect of decarbonization, for example, or you are a social impact investor, or you are part of a think tank, or you're a big brand, from industry. Everyone who is part of that system, those ecosystems that travel, as we know, across industries, and as we know, across all the goals you can come up with to achieve sustainability, all find their place, their way in a place where they are setting up a user profile that focuses on what brings them together instead of separates them. What is your priority with respect to sustainability? Is it about social justice? Therefore, modern slavery becomes a very, very big piece of the equation. Is it about decarbonization, in which case, there is so much coordination that is not occurring, so much duplication and redundancy in effort that is occurring. There are so many gaps. Anywhere you may fit as an individual in the ecosystems that surround these change priorities, right? You are coming into SustainChain to identify who you are, what you bring, and what your priorities are, what you're looking for. There's a part of SustainChain. I wish I could show it on screen, but folks, I invite everyone who's listening to please go and look at what you can accomplish inside SustainChain. This is an opportunity to get, access to, visibility to all the different folks who are focused on the same priorities you are, and may be able to bring you funding, may be able to offer a solution, may be able to bring insight and intelligence, think tanks, policy people, and so on. And we did this because it was lacking, right? So there's so many different ways you can use tools to do your work better, regardless of where you are in business and in sustainability too. But there is no integration, right? A point of integration for all of those things. So you become a member, it's invitation only. That is to protect those who are serious about the work, who are committed to seeing the right things accomplished. versus others, as we all know, who are interested in the marketing, right? Power of messaging that you're committed to it. We know there's a lot of people in the investment community, a lot of people in big industry, a lot of people in government who talk about sustainability, but are they really dedicated to what it takes to get there? So it's important that SustainChain is invitation only. It allows us to vet and make sure that all the serious change makers that sit within these ecosystems and can contribute whatever it is they contribute, or discover what it is they need to find or discover, are there. So you become a user on the same basis everyone else does. Do you represent an industry? Do you represent academia? Do you represent funding? Beyond that, what is your focus? What are your priorities? What do you bring? And then one of the most wonderful things that, and obviously very critical to that equation, is AI. And so what we've done is we've created an engine inside SustainChain called Da Vinci. And it is an artificial intelligence learning engine that connects all of these individual pieces in ways that would ordinarily or otherwise not be highlighted, right? So as it learns, it actually delivers to you as a user through notifications and so on. And if you're in a SustainChain, you'll see them. You have your own little dynamic dashboard as opportunities are generated by AI in terms of different solutions or different groups that are focusing on an aspect of your own priority. You become instantly aware of that. You have the ability to connect to it, and you have the ability to build new initiatives and steps that instantly others can join, that it's cross-cutting across industries, across individual contributors, and so on. That's the way it works. Again, it is to be additive to everything else that's going on, and just to provide a clarity and a sort of connection, and therefore a basis for moving faster, if that makes sense.
So yes, so let's go. The website is SustainChain World.
.world, yes.
SustainChain.world, www.sustainchain.world. We have it there. And it's nonprofit.
Yes, it's a non.
And how many people are working in your organization?
Well, in order to get it going, like, a lot of people who are doing things just for good, we started a nonprofit, and it's called the U.S. Coalition on Sustainability. And it was under that umbrella that I was able to personally do the diligence and bring together some like-minded individuals who could get behind what we hope will be this revolutionary way to accelerate change in order to achieve sustainability. So the U.S. Coalition on Sustainability is the nonprofit. SustainChain is a technology. It is a neutral, we'd like to call it Switzerland, but Switzerland is or isn't neutral. This is to say it's a completely neutral site. It's not owned or backed by any individual industry or company. And it's basically this safe place for folks to contribute. The way we got it done, frankly, is through numerous partnerships. The technology would not have been, we don't have our own engineers, but we were made very early on during the pandemic, we were made the green investment, tech investment, by a company called ThoughtWorks. They were the folks that allowed us to build our first beta, and a company that is affiliated with them created Da Vinci. And so we were able to get up. Thankfully, we didn't have to raise a lot of money to develop the technology, and with my experience and my partner in arms, Joanna Hall, who is executive director of the U.S. Coalition on Sustainability. She's also the head of product. In fact, we go back many years. She helped me build my company, Brightline, which is a technology company in the TV and media space. She and I are driving this thing, and we have incredible people who are bringing their expertise to the table, just gratis. We do have folks, wonderful people. I think I mentioned in one of our earlier conversations, the Gross Foundation, the Gross Family Foundation. It was Jennifer Gross and the Gross family who asked me to take this on to begin with. And so they've provided some seed funding for us to take root and to get some traction with all of this. But right now it's all about, how fast can the technology expand? How fast can the engine learn? How fast can we exponentially grow our community in this trusted, vetted way? And so we are hoping that folks will contribute to that. And our contributions go directly to the technology. It's a little different from a lot of others. And I'm sure yours is unique in this way as well. Leading a lot of being parts of other nonprofit boards, you realize people don't want to just give. They want to know where their money is going. They want to feel connected to the outcomes. And that was a very important part of how the U.S. Coalition on Sustainability was built. People give with their capabilities. And at the end of the day, however, some things still cost money. And so we raise money in order to keep the technology in its, in a safe place, in a stable place, and to be able to build on strength. And then we look to big technology companies who say they want to do a lot of good, don't they? So we're hoping to grow the partnerships that we have now, like Monday.com and Slack and ThoughtWorks and XPRIZE and others who are, leaning in to help us accomplish. We're hoping the big guys do it too. And maybe we'll be able to announce something like that. I hope so in the next 6 months.
And tell me about Brightline. What is that? That's separate. That's your business.
It's so different and yet so similar in that before I started Brightline, which was many years ago now, in 2003, I had a different career in change management. And this is a company that was started to initially to back up a friend who was very passionate about bringing a better experience and a different level of communication through media than we were used to. And I initially just got behind him, and then somehow, started to lead it. And now 20 years later, this is a technology that is relied upon by the big streaming companies, all of the apps that you now watch on your smart TV, Hulu and Disney and NBC, Peacock, and all of those who we created a technology that allows them to make the experience inside that app as strong as it can be. I will tell you that it was designed to do things that are far more sophisticated than users are actually able to do inside those apps. So sometimes, like everything, you have to wait for the world to sort of catch up to what the technology can do. But thank God we were able to sort of gut it out for as long as it took to make streaming a real, to take over really in terms of that television and media experience that we all live now. I say unfortunately, it took a pandemic, for people to actually need, to escape through video in a way that our technology was able to provide on television.
So where are you now, by the way? What am I seeing in the background? Where are you?
It's in Connecticut. This is where I escaped to during the pandemic and found that gosh, you can be really effective when you sort of like surround yourself with nature and find a special spot. Yeah, I manage just about everything from here now.
Well, good. So, very interesting everything you're doing. And so I have some, straightforward ideas and questions,
Yeah.
and
Great.
just need your kind of reflection on them. So, for example, our nonprofit, which is the Chopra Foundation, has a campaign called neveralone.love.
Mm.
Neveralone.love. It's a nonprofit program that uses artificial intelligence and emotional AI primarily for suicide prevention. And this emotional chatbot now has, I think, intervened almost in 6,000 suicidal ideations. And as you know, suicide is the second most common cause of death amongst teens now. And every 40 seconds, somebody in the world is dying from suicide. This chatbot, which is called Peewee, named after a recording artist who died from suicide, whose sister is an actress that I work with. So it's called Peewee, named after her sister, but was her nickname. But we now also use it as an acronym: Personalized Intervention with Intention. And it's talking to, say, 20 million people simultaneously, having a huge impact. We're even trying to create a cryptocurrency, a blockchain to pay for counselors in case somebody needs them. But it's been so effective that I've been having conversations in the Middle East with the governments there. And we are probably going to deploy it very soon in Arabic, in Hindi, in Farsi, in maybe Korean and Chinese. Depression is global. And maybe if you all rally around this one cause of mental sustainability,
Yes.
it can bring some peace to the world. So is that something that would be part of SustainChain? Could it be part of SustainChain?
I think that it could and should. And I think that we know that the world we live in is a set of circumstances and dynamics, and frankly, because of the world we live in, where technology is concerned as well, and how fast everything moves, I tend to think that, and I have 3 daughters who, I observe in terms of the differences in what they confront and tackle and internalize and so on. It's certainly not surprising, the numbers and the issues around mental health. And I would say that certainly, everything that I started doing around this started with a belief that, sustainability requires a commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals, which were developed by the UN after the Millennium Development Goals, and got that full embrace from the world. Is a reflection, I think, of all the interconnected pieces that have to be true if we are really to achieve sustainability. SustainChain tackles a certain aspects of those. But as I mentioned, because the systems that lie beneath the surface of rebuilding global supply chains have to do with individuals, right? It's we as individuals who are ultimately going to make this happen. And we're going to make it happen because of the pressure that we put on business, but also the pressure we put on policymakers and governments, right? We can't turn the page without that. And so I believe that what you've developed and the AI that is becoming so powerful because of the focus you have is something that must be integrated with the types of, and of course, ours is about the AI we've developed and is, learning, has to do with how fast you can move. But behavior is going to be the driver for how fast you can move, no matter how great the knowledge is. And I think that that's certainly, I think it's true of all AI, right? And so what I believe is that where you and your AI as part of your programs is supporting, right, individuals in moments of personal crisis and mental health crisis, it has to be a part of the systems by which we rebuild anything. And so I believe that the learnings that are coming, the AI on your end, combined with the types of AI, what AI is learning on our end, will make for a world that can, work not just faster, but in a way that takes us to a healthier, more, the word I'm looking for is escaping me right now, symbiotic way. And that's the way so I do see it as I would like to invite you to bring your group and your program onto SustainChain. I think that people are looking for solutions that include these types of services, and together we can create the fiber of a new sort of reality around the way these sort of new world, right, scenarios can be accomplished.
So let me share with you that the Chopra Foundation, which is a 501c3, there, and I'm, the founder, but it's a public foundation, 501c3. Our mission statement is reach a critical mass of people, which in our mind, we decided was going to be 1 billion, for personal and social transformation for a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. So each of those words, peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful. We've taken on projects in all those directions. So we have projects on conflict resolution. We have techniques that we can employ that work. Peace. On social justice, we connect people with other people. On health, we are actually now convinced that 95% of all chronic illness is not genetically determined, but is based on what we call epigenetic modulation, controlling inflammation, and many other things. So we, under health, we have projects on biological sustainability, but also human longevity and health span and lifespan, and how spiritual practices can actually change gene expression. So right now, I actually have a conversation with some scientists who work with the Vatican, but also with His Holiness. We are looking at the Dalai Lama, but amongst the Sufi traditions, we have ample proof that practices like meditation, mindfulness, breathing techniques, yogic practices can actually change gene expression and extend lifespan, and even cause remission in diseases.
Yeah.
All these things, of course, require collaboration, they require funding, they require experts. So would you be amenable to having a conversation with some of the people in our foundation? We can update you on all these things and see where there is the possibility to have more impact on chronic illness, peace, and sustainability. Last year I went to Davos because I was interested in seeing what they're talking about climate change. And, there are all these big corporations flying in, talking about climate change on private planes and, with huge carbon footprints, and they're talking about sustainable planet. There's a lot of talk, but as you know, even in climate change, there are a few things that we know work. Protecting coastal marshlands, number one. Distributed supply chains, number two, including distributed energy chains, number two, and in clean transportation and public transportation instead of all this, people driving their own cars, restoration of indigenous people's rights, and much, much more, in addition to planting trees or resurrecting
Right.
the microbiome. There's a lot we can do, but it's not happening. It's again, there's a lot of PR by these big companies and corporations and special interest groups. They talk about peace, but then they support the manufacturing of weapons or
Right.
drones or cyber warfare. Look at what's happening in the world. So I think there's a conversation here I'd like to have with you and some of the key members of our foundation. If you're amenable to it, we'll set it up. In the meanwhile, what we should do is we should post this conversation on social media, see what interest there is in the world, and invite people to share their ideas as well.
I love it. I love it. May I say one last thing?
Yes, please.
Which is, I'm so happy that you raised that, and I'm so excited to have that conversation. There's a connection because of the urgency. We know the urgency is there. There is this connection, and I meant what I said with in terms of symbiosis, because I feel like everything that you are describing, and specifically the one angle like that we're bringing in terms of connecting everything that you say with, and therefore we can work faster. How? Because we've brought them together. We're learning not just how to get things done, we're actually able to get them done because we're bringing these things together. And it feeds my soul to think that we can actually accomplish something along those lines together.
Jacqueline, it speaks to my soul too. I'm, in the most important phase of my life, which is the 4th chapter, which is spiritual practice and helping the world. So nothing more important than this kind of collaboration for people to be the change they want to see in the world. So tell me one more thing. We met as a result of, where did we first meet? Just remind me.
We met listening to your brilliant reflections at the Founders Forum.
That's right. So
Yeah,
we're having another conversation
for a long time.
They want to do something in England soon, so we should look at that too.
We should do that. What? Oh, how wonderful! How wonderful! And because I think that's in June, so it'd be perfect.
I'm looking at that possibility too.